Hey there, thinkers! Welcome back to Critical Hit. As always, my name is Est, and with a new year comes fresh controversies in the gaming world. And today, we're just diving into the latest drama surrounding Ubisoft and their Assassin's Creed franchise, from accusations of historical inaccuracies to a heated debate over grifters in the gaming community. Like, it kind of seems like the battle over gaming culture and authenticity is far from over. So, as we break down the key points, uncovering the truth behind Ubisoft's marketing claims, and explore how a diverse social media post has reignited controversies about integrity and representation in the industry. However, I do have a few things to say here, but before I do, we have a small request. If you are new here, consider hitting the subscribe button, smashing that like, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. We would greatly appreciate this, since this will help us appease those YouTube algorithm gods. So, we thank you. Now, let me give you our thoughts on this, and now that it's finally 2025, what will the new year bring in the realm of gaming news? Who knows? But let's dive in. So apparently, an Assassin's Creed news account wants to remove grifters from gaming. And yes, it's as cringeworthy as you might expect. Over at Fan Impulse, there's an article discussing this. Now, let's look at the tweet that sparked all this. So, an X account at L3VI3 wrote, "Enough. I've watched long enough. I'm not going to let the grifters turn my hobby into nothing. There is no room in the Assassin's Creed community for racism, misogyny, hate, agitation, lies, and death threats. Everyone who doesn't stick to this will be blocked. It's time to reclaim gaming." Honestly, this reeks of performative activism that's more about gatekeeping than actually addressing issues in the gaming community. Well, nobody wants racism, misogyny, or hate in any community. Lumping valid criticism or differing opinions under the same umbrella as death threats and agitation? Like, come on, that's a slippery slope. Statements like these often lead to silencing dissent and stifling open discussions under the guise of reclaiming gaming. Like, it's especially ironic coming from a fan of Assassin's Creed, a series that thrives on historical nuances and freedom of thought. The community doesn't need self-appointed moral arbiters deciding who belongs based on vague subjective criteria. Like, gaming communities benefit from honest, constructive conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, not from someone wielding the block button as a badge of honor while preaching unity. Like, instead of dividing the community further, maybe focus on fostering genuine discussions that help the community grow. As we've seen over the past half-decade or more, accusations of racism, misogyny, and hate often arise when someone simply doesn't agree with certain opinions. It's an attempt to slander someone's character and avoid addressing the real disagreements. This seems to be exactly what's happening here. Interestingly, Ubisoft, the developer of Assassin's Creed, has its own history of behavior that warrants scrutiny, especially when examined alongside this narrative. See, this is a great point and highlights a frustrating trend in discourse: the overuse of terms like racism and misogyny to dismiss dissenting opinions rather than engaging with the actual arguments shuts down meaningful conversations. It's often weaponized as a distraction to avoid addressing valid critiques or concerns. As for Ubisoft, you're spot on about their history. While they have taken steps to market themselves as inclusive or progressive, their internal controversies, such as allegations of workplace misconduct and toxic management, paint a more complicated picture. It raises questions whether their actions align with their public narratives or if they're just leveraging woke branding to deflect criticism and maintain public favor. The article continues. For example, Ubisoft's portrayal of Yasuke, the main protagonist in Assassin's Creed Shadows, has faced significant criticism. Despite marketing Yasuke as a legendary samurai, Japanese historians have challenged this narrative. Yuki Yagura, I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, a respected historian, stated that there is little evidence to support this claim. While Yasuke was documented in Jisut records as a powerful bodyguard and entertainer for Nobuya, there is no substantial proof that he was a samurai in the traditional sense. For realio, why are Japanese names so hard? But seriously, Ubisoft is doing what Ubisoft does best, stretching history until it screams for mercy, marketing Yasuke as a legendary samurai when actual historians like Yuki Ugara point out that there's no solid evidence he ever was one. Like, sure, classic, right? Yasuke was a fascinating figure, a towering bodyguard and entertainer in Nobuyaga's court. But a full-fledged samurai is about as historically accurate as putting a lightsaber in a medieval knight's hands. But hey, you know what? This is Assassin's Creed we're talking about. A series where historical accuracy is optional, as long as it looks cool in a cinematic trailer. At this point, it's less about history and more about whatever Ubisoft thinks will sell copies. And the real question is, does this level of artistic liberty get a pass because it's a video game? Or is it just another case of dumbing down history to make it more marketable? Further complicating matters, Ubisoft admitted going beyond accepted truth, with the game acknowledging their embellishment of history. Executive producer Mark Alexis Cote told the New York Times that they'd aim to defy cliches and present a critical point of view, which seems to be code for altering historical facts. Despite apologies to the Japanese community for causing concern, Ubisoft continues to use debunked claims in its marketing. I mean, how noble of Ubisoft to admit that they're going beyond accepted truth. Like, why bother with facts when you can just sprinkle in some creative liberties and call it critical thinking, right? It's almost poetic how they dress up historical embellishments as some sort of intellectual rebellion, defying cliches by creating new ones out of thin air. Like, who needs pesky things like accuracy or respect when you can just slap a critical point of view sticker on your marketing material and call it a day? And let's not overlook the apology to the Japanese community, a masterpiece in corporate doublespeak. We're deeply sorry for any distress we've caused by misrepresenting your history. But don't worry, we'll continue to use those very same misrepresentations in our next marketing campaign. You're welcome. It's like they're saying with one hand while holding a megaphone of misinformation in the other. At this point, Ubisoft's games aren't historical fiction, they're historical fan fiction. Maybe they should just embrace it. Assassin's Creed Alternate Facts Edition. And now, additionally, the game director Charles Benoit claimed that the game would teach players about Sengoku era of Japan, promoting it as historically accurate. Yet, the game has been criticized for inaccurate depictions of architecture, seasons, and cultural elements, showcasing Chinese influences rather than Japanese ones. Like, even Ubisoft's dual protagonists, Yasuke and the Japanese shinobi, failed to align with the historical records. Ubisoft is here to teach us about the Sengoku era because nothing screams historical accuracy quite like cherry-picking cultural elements from the wrong country. Chinese influences in feudal Japan? Sure, why not just throw an Eiffel Tower while you're at it? Maybe some pyramids for good measure too. There are also seasons that don't match Japan's climate. Clearly, they're aiming for that artistic freedom badge, right? And let's not forget the dynamic duo, Yasuke, who was the real historical figure, teaming up with a generic shinobi because reasons. And who needs actual historical context when you can just make it feel like a buddy cop movie in medieval Japan? Ubisoft's motto must be, why let facts get in the way of our vision? It's almost as if they opened a history book, skimmed through Wikipedia pages, and then tossed it all aside to write their fanfic. But you know what? They say it's historically accurate, so I guess we should all just nod and pretend we're learning something? What's even more ironic is Ubisoft's commitment to diversity and inclusion, which they proudly highlight on their website. While promoting these values, they're accused of perpetuating racism and manipulating cultural narratives. This seems to be a clear case of projecting their shortcomings onto others while expecting the community to just accept their version of the truth. Oh, right, I forgot, because Ubisoft is the self-proclaimed champions of diversity and inclusion, while boldly parading their values across every corner of their website like a badge of honor. And yet, here they are, accused of perpetuating racism by tweeting cultural narratives to fit their agenda. Like, it's almost poetic, like watching a company trip over its own moral high ground. But the real masterpiece? The projection. Somehow, while failing to clean up their own mess, they expect the gaming community to not only buy their games, but somehow swallow their version of the truth whole. Like, it's almost as if they think a shiny PR statement can fix systematic issues overnight. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, it can't. So bravo Ubisoft for delivering the plot twist of the year. Turns out the villain wasn't in the game. It was the corporate hypocrisy all along. And it's frustrating to see these issues persist, especially when Ubisoft's diversity and inclusion initiatives seem to create division rather than unity. While the Assassin's Creed news account claims to reject all lies and hate in the community, it appears that Ubisoft is the main culprit pushing these narratives. Time and time again, they have been guilty of the very things that they accuse others of. And Ubisoft's idea of rejecting lies and hate seems to involve spinning narratives so dizzying they could double as a VR experience. It's ironic, really. While they wag their fingers at the community for being toxic, they've conveniently glossed over their own track record of pushing divisive narratives and alienating their player base. Maybe instead of lecturing fans about morality, they should focus on delivering a game that isn't riddled with bugs or burdened by forced political agendas. Oh, but hey, why address actual issues like repetitive gameplay, cringeworthy dialogue, or their inability to innovate when you can just slap diversity and inclusion on the box and call it a day? But who needs accountability when you can just virtue signal your way to the press release, right? However, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, before you go, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. As always, this is Est, and I'm signing off now. So I will see you in the next one. Toodles!